Okay, we're ready to go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angelica Thornton. I'm a reporter and anchor at K2 News, and tonight I'll be moderating our community conversation on vaping. My most important job, though, is as a parent. I have two children, an 8th grade boy and a 5th grade boy, so I am really eager to learn from our panelists tonight. I have a lot of questions myself. I'd like to introduce them. Lori Crum is the principal at Highland Park Middle School. She has worked in education for 28 years, 20 of them in the Beaverton School District. Danielle Gonzalez is a BSD nurse assigned to Southridge High School, Errol Hessel Elementary School, and Arco Iris Charter School. Kristen Gustafson is a PE and health teacher on special assignment who's deeply involved in developing the district's health curriculum. And Lynn Kramer is a BSD substance use specialist who works directly with students who may be struggling with substance use. Each of them will be giving a very short presentation, and then we'll be spending most of the hour answering questions that you may have. But first, we wanted to show you a clip from a story that first appeared on ABC's Nightline about one teen's experience with vaping.
The smoker, the vaping just makes it seem like it's nothing, like you're doing nothing wrong.
Seema was in high school when she started vaping nicotine.
I was 16 the first time, 15 even, the first time I bought it at the smoke shop. I went in and I was like, can I get a pack of Juul pods? And they were like, how old are you? And I said 22. And they were just like, okay. It ended up becoming my oxygen. I couldn't live without it. I needed it all the time, every day. But because all of my friends were doing it all the time and no one else had symptoms that I had, I wouldn't even have imagined that maybe this is killing me.
Seema was an active, healthy teen. She'd been dancing for years, even making dance team her freshman year of college. But as her vaping habit increased, adding in cannabis, her ability to dance disappeared. She was vaping a cartridge a day. That's like smoking the same amount of nicotine as a pack of cigarettes in one day. Her parents had no idea their daughter had become hopelessly addicted.
This healthy dancer dancing 12 hours a week stopped dancing because of it, stopped living because of it, stopped going to school and college because of it.
Seema says she was feeling sick all the time.
Over a year, I lost like 50 pounds without trying.
50 pounds?
Yeah.
By this summer, Seema had stopped going to her college classes. She says her health issues were getting worse, but no doctor could nail down what was wrong.
Did you not tell the doctors that you vaped?
I actually did. I made sure that every hospital, every ER, every doctor's office I went to, I told them that I smoked.
But you never thought, I can't breathe, I feel like I'm gonna die. Maybe it's because I'm vaping every 10 to 15 minutes.
No doctor ever said, like, maybe you should stop vaping.
It all came to a head on August 15th when Seema's dad rushed her to the ER.
I said, go fast. Don't let me close my eyes. Don't let me fall asleep or I won't wake up.
Now, why did you say that?
Because I knew I was dying.
You felt death on you.
Yeah. It was terrifying. The worst part was I couldn't let it, like, my parents watch it happen to me.
But hospital staff couldn't figure out why Seema couldn't breathe. 2 days later, doctors had to put her on a ventilator.
I was begging them, vent her faster, she's going to die. And it was terrifying.
It was in that agonizing moment that Seema's cousin revealed her secret addiction.
She said, you know, she smokes every day. I said, what? What are you talking about? She said, she smokes every day. She smokes that vape. I said, you tell the doctors right now. You go tell the doctors right now. And I ransacked her room and I found all the vapes. They look like gum wrappers. They look like little candy wrappers. They look like little cute mascara wands.
This progression is so fast.
Dr. Catherine Melamed is a pulmonologist at UCLA Medical Center. She worked on Seema's case.
This was Seema's chest x-ray when she came into our hospital. These hazy white areas here at the base, at the bottom of her lungs, just show that she could have a pneumonia. But what you can then see is if we choose an x-ray from just less than 48 hours later, whoa. Now her lungs, all of this white haziness here, is inflammation.
That was really scary to watch as a parent. Obviously, we're going to start the presentation now with Lori Crum. You have been talking with your fellow BSD principals. What are you seeing right now in Beaverton schools?
Well, I'm going to kind of go off my script a little bit because I hadn't seen that that clip, and it is so powerful. And seeing Sina reminds me, I've worked at both high school and middle school. I'm currently a middle school principal, but I was a high school assistant principal for many years as well. And it gives me goosebumps because I can remember walking into a bathroom and Sina, a girl just like Sina, beautiful, straight A, in our IB program, just really seemingly had her life together, was on our bathroom floor sobbing. And I high school assistant principals and middle school principals and assistant principals, we do what's called bathroom sweeps, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But I was just sweeping the bathroom, go to class, basically. And I see this beautiful girl, I think she was a junior at the time, sobbing on the bathroom floor. And I don't have it here, but she had a vape cartridge like this, empty next to her. And it was about 8:15 in the morning, and school starts at 7:45 at the high school. So she had vaped an entire cartridge, which hearing that is about an entire pack of cigarettes in 30 minutes. And she was basically having a withdrawal, right? But the disappointment and the sadness and the fear she had in herself, knowing that she was so addicted, she's just like, Mrs. Crum, I need your help. I need your help. And we were able to help her, and she did get out of it. But the extent of the addiction of the nicotine is so extraordinary, and it was so painful to watch this beautiful girl feel like she was throwing her life away and not know how to get it back. So I know I went off a little bit off script, but it fit with that. And it's no secret that vaping is on the rise for our teens and our young adults. In a good way, middle school has seen less this year, less vaping, a reported decrease. But in a way, we worry about that a little bit, because does that mean we're not catching it? Does that mean kids are doing it at home? Because we still know it is absolutely a huge factor. I talked to my high school principals, my high school friends, and they're still seeing an increase in freshmen this year. But luckily, I'm thinking that our health curriculum people right down there are doing a good job nights like this. We're seeing at least a little bit of decrease in our data. That said, it's very glorified. If you get on any Snapchat, if you get on any social media, the idea of vaping is glorified. And the hookup of how to get the vape pens happens through social media. And social media is not going away, which makes me know that we need to be more and more aware of what we're doing here. Almost every time I find a student vaping and we have a conversation, every single time I ask, so what made you take that first puff? Because I know it's that first puff, and I don't want to be dramatic, but it's a gateway, right? And almost without exception, the reply is, I tried it because my friends did, or I was doing it with my friends. And with social media making it look cool, safe, and like everybody else is doing it, it makes it seem like they're the only ones not doing it. It makes it hard to resist. And then you have flavors like cotton candy, Jolly Rancher grape, strawberry cream, whatever it is, they're even harder to resist. Then once you add the addiction component of that nicotine, it makes it very easy to become addicted. So you've got that cycle. But as we've seen this vape trend evolve, we've seen a change in the substances. So when I first started at Southridge, it was mostly nicotine, but now it's all the way from nicotine to marijuana. I just got a melatonin vape pen the other day, where students people can just buy vape pens on Amazon that's B12 or vitamin C, in this case melatonin, because they don't realize that no matter what substance you're still putting it into your lungs, which I think Danielle will probably talk about. from a parent's perspective, one of the things I want to urge you, or the community perspective, is that our vape devices these days, they are meant to be not found. So we find students with vape pens that look like highlighters, writing pens, lip gloss. I brought some to share from our coffers here, not sharing these, just to show you. So it's sometimes hard to identify, but I think we're going to talk about that more as well. But I think one of the things is we're aware of it. We want our community to be aware of it, so that from there we can wrap around with education. We're not trying to punish our students. We're just trying to help them understand that what they're doing to their body is dangerous, and they don't need to be like everybody else. Because you know what? All their friends are not doing it. Everybody is not doing it. But sometimes I know when you are a middle school or a freshman, it feels like you have to follow the crowd. So I'm excited to see what questions you have and how I can help.
Lori, thank you. Let's talk to Nurse Danielle Gonzalez about this, because as we just saw, obviously, in the video, there are some serious health consequences involved here.
Yeah, there really are. I wanted to start just by saying that smoking is one of the leading causes of death in the United States, and it's completely preventable, right? And so keeping that in mind, that's why we gather here, right? We want to make sure that we're trying to prevent death, and we're trying to prevent all of those disabilities and injuries to our body, right? So I think the most important thing to realize is we got to protect our brains. That's the biggest thing to me. Is nicotine is in most of our vape pens. You can get vape pens that don't have nicotine, but they can have a variety of different things: nicotine, cannabis, flavorings. They have chemicals in them. They have oils, lots of other substances that can be used, that can be within the vape pens. But nicotine is one of the biggest problems because it does directly affect your brain. It is highly addictive. It is found naturally in tobacco, but it is now being produced synthetically, and those synthetic ways of making them can be extra concentrated. So that's how we can get a whole pack of cigarette concentration nicotine in just a cartridge of a vape pen. So what's happening is the nicotine goes into your brain. It attaches to all the receptors, and our students, our kids, their brains are still developing, and so they have a lot more of those receptors in the brain, and so that nicotine attaches, and it can immediately, it tells the body to release dopamine. It immediately tells the body, I'm happy and I feel good. And then within 30 minutes after that nicotine sort of wears off, your brain already says, ooh, I need to get that dopamine level back up. And so your body is already starting that craving and that addiction cycle of saying, I need this again because I want to feel that happiness. But unfortunately, it's a fake happiness, right? Because it's just the extra dopamine in your body, but it's not a true happiness. And unfortunately, that nicotine, as it wears off, it actually creates like the full absence of joy, and creates that craving. What we know is that truly the long-term effects of vaping, especially the nicotine, is that it causes trouble with concentration. It causes trouble with mood stabilization and regulation, right? It affects the way that the brain is able to process information and learn, so it can increase learning disabilities. It also really causes problems with anxiety and depression. So if you're already having anxiety, if you're already having depression or other mental health problems, it's going to exacerbate those even more. So that's the big thing that I wanted to get across to you all today. So nicotine is affecting our children's brains when they're vaping, but we also have the problem of our lungs, right? And so our bodies our lungs are not made to inhale all of these chemicals and oils and whatnot. And so we can see, as in the video, where a very healthy teenager suddenly becomes, has trouble breathing, has wheezing, has coughing, has vomiting, nausea, stomach pains, heart problems. Unfortunately, that does happen, and it's because we're inhaling particles into our lungs that are not supposed to be there. So we can talk more about that, but that's the biggest thing I wanted you all to know about, is just sort of how that is affecting our bodies.
Yeah, it's critical information. Kristen, Lori kind of touched on the progress, the success that's happening. So can you talk a little bit about what we're teaching in Beaverton schools right now?
Sure. First of all, we know what doesn't work. So I don't know, parents in the room, if you remember Nancy Reagan's Just Say No, or the video of the egg in the skillet. This is your brain on drugs, right? So we know that scare tactics and fear doesn't work. One-time assemblies, or having, like Officer Bob come in and talk to our students, it may be interesting at the time. And we also know that knowledge-based interventions don't work in themselves as well. So just giving our kids just content. But what we do know that works is arming our kids with skills along with information. And so here in Beaverton, we have K through 12 health education that our students are exposed to in their classes. And many of the drug prevention lessons are starting, the conversations are starting in around 3rd grade. And they look very different because also our lessons are developmentally appropriate and they're medically accurate. So speaking of medically accurate, we know that our students want to know the truth. And so scaring them, right, showing them scary pictures of people that have used, this is like the many faces of meth. I remember that came out when I was in high school, trying to scare us of all the faces of people that have done meth and so forth. We know they don't work. So we also know that building resilience and relationships and connections is a big part of what we do. And so in the Beaverton School District, we have kindness in the classroom in our elementary schools, and we have Character Strong in our secondary schools. And what we're doing within those lessons and with our students is we're building communication skills. We are letting them check in with their emotions so that they understand that emotions are normal, but how do we regulate those emotions? And we're building resiliency. And so we know that those are all protective factors that help our students, right, in all avenues of their life. And then our secondary health lessons especially are focused on skill building. So not only are we taking the content, but we're arming them with skills such as refusal skills, accessing valid and reliable information so that maybe they are thinking about trying, but they want to see if what their teacher is telling them is the actual truth. So we teach them how to look up and research information that they can rely upon, right? And hopefully then they are finding out, oh, they are telling us the truth. And then we know that, which I know that Lynn might be talking about, is that if we can even delay the age of use, that is a highly protective factor in determining whether or not our students will become an addict because we know that kids are going to experiment, and 2/3 of students and people that do end up trying don't become abusers or users. But we're playing a little bit of a guessing game on who that 1/3 will be, right? And we know that there's some predisposed factors also in there that are genetics. It also, is there a connection to a community, how well they're doing in school? So there's a lot of things that are going on that not only are happening in the health class, but we're also, as a community and in the Beaverton School District, we're really working with our students. And so,
Yeah, finally, Lynn, how can a student get help with this addiction? This is such a critical piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah, like Kristen said, she'd mentioned things called protective factors, and there's a lot of components to that. And one of the biggest ones that she mentioned is the relationships we have with our kids, and the relationships we have with the kids and the relationships you guys have with your students is huge. And being able to maintain those relationships and keep those conversations going. Start a conversation with them. Don't be afraid to talk about it. There's a really strange misconception that if we talk about things like this, that it's going to drive kids to them. And that's not the case. The more information we can arm our kids with, the better they'll be at decision making. They'll be able to make informed decisions. So start these conversations and keep them going. It's not a one-time conversation. It's continuous. And as part of these conversations, make sure that you have accurate information. Look for scholarly articles or peer-reviewed articles that you can find to combat the information they're getting on social media or Reddit or different things like that. And because they will go looking for it. They'll hear something in their health classes, they'll hear something from their friends, and they'll turn somewhere, probably not the right place, to see if that information is accurate. So make sure that you're armed with the correct knowledge. And then if you are concerned about behaviors that they have, get in touch with your school counselor to put you in touch with one of us. We're the substance use specialists. We've been in all of the secondary schools for the last few years. So all of the middle and high schools have one assigned to them. And we work with kids individually and on a group basis in some of the schools. And we do staff support and prevention work and education for families. And we focus a lot on motivation building and goal setting and being able to foster positive decision-making skills and creating better healthy relationships and boundaries with their peers. And a lot of the preventative work and effort that Kristen was talking about happens with those. And the strongest preventative work we can do isn't necessarily related to substances. It's all about fostering positive mental health habits and healthy relationships and healthy decision making. And so being able to continue those conversations from their health classes, from their advisory classes, and keeping all of those conversations flowing at home.
Can I just say one thing that when I was in the classroom, I'm here at district office, but I caught one of my students in the bathroom vaping, and similar to Lori's story, it came down to, well, they were upset got caught, but they just wanted help. And what came about in health class was, Mrs. Gustafson, why does somebody have to get in trouble as a kid to get actual help? And I'm so glad that we're no longer in that place. That was pre-COVID. And I'm so glad that Beaverton School District has invested in substance use specialists like that, so that we can come alongside, like Lori said, who's a principal, that we're not always looking to discipline our kids, we're looking to learn, right? Because this is an educational institution.
Yeah, we are involved with the admins alongside the processes that happen at school, but whenever the admins or the teachers offer my services in the schools, it's always as a support. It's never as a consequence for something that happened. And it also doesn't always have to be a reaction from being caught at school. I had a student walk into my office today. I had never met this kid, and they just wanted to come in and ask where I was and for help, and they scheduled an appointment for tomorrow. So we try and make ourselves very available for the kids, and for them to be able to receive help even when they're not in trouble. Hopefully before they get in trouble.
Before we open it up to questions, we wanted to show you one more very short video. This one is of Beaverton School District students.
To be honest, I think it's like really popular. I mean, it's decently popular, but like I don't feel like much people do it at our school.
Really popular because they really want to be like mature because they see older people doing it.
They just do it to relieve stress, even though it gets you more stress.
Some kids do it to like have attention and to like not feel left out if their friends do it.
Or they're dealing with a lot, and like instead of asking for help and stuff, they go to like drugs or smoking.
They see people and they want to be like them.
Probably to make them feel cool.
It's pretty readily available.
When it's like easier to get the stuff, they start doing it more.
You can get it anywhere. And a lot of people can just steal it from their parents.
I see people doing it. You know, you walk into the bathroom and you'll see people vaping. It's just something that kind of goes on.
I walked into a bathroom after girls like left and it smelled like smoke and like perfume mixing.
Probably around the starting grades of middle school, they'd hit puberty and then they would start vaping.
12 to 14.
Around like 15 or 16, but I know a few people who started like around 13.
Why are you doing it? You know, it's not good for your health.
I don't really think it's good because it's slowly making your lungs worse.
You're killing yourself is all you're doing. You are getting metal into your lungs and you are slowly killing yourself.
All right, I jumped the gun earlier. Let's open it up
To
to
be honest, I think it's like
now.
really popular.
We invite you to ask
decently
questions of any of
popular.
our panelists up here. Just raise your hand if you have a question.
Sorry, hello.
Hey.
I couldn't hear what Lynn said about each student has one assigned to them. Has one what?
Each of the secondary schools, all of the middle and high schools, have a substance use specialist assigned to serve their campus. And so if you have a kid in one of those schools, then you can reach out to their school counselor or admins or even some of their teachers and let them get connected at school.
Okay, so it's the school that each school has one assigned, not each
Yes.
student.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you have or do you follow some information like statistic information about these kids that they are vaping? Also, they are using other drugs. That would be probably one of my questions.
So is your question, is there a chance they're using other drugs if they're vaping? Is there a connection? Is that the question?
Yeah, and also like if they are using the vaping at school because they are thinking that it's going to be less
More acceptable at
yeah,
school?
or they are going to have less problems if
Yeah.
they are discovered with other types of drugs.
Have you found that, Danielle, at all? Is there a correlation at all?
So
I mean, it's hard, every case is different, every student's
it's
different.
hard to say. So there's definitely a connection between, starting with vaping. It can then move on to maybe needing to smoke a typical cigarette to get that nicotine, that same nicotine high, or doing both in combination, right? They say it could be a gateway into other types of substances, since you can easily smoke marijuana in the vape pens. Those could be interchangeable, right? So some people might move on to marijuana.
Lynn, what would you say about that?
Yeah, it's not always going to be a correlation like that. Sometimes there are a lot of students who will just use one, but with the ease of nicotine, a lot of students have a hard time maintaining the longer high. A nicotine high goes away very, very quickly. And so sometimes when they're not in school, they will try experimenting with other things. For the most part in schools, what we're seeing is mostly vaping and nicotine and cannabis. But we actually last year took a lot of statistics from the students we were working with. And granted, we're limited to what they report to us, and underreporting is very common. And a lot of the students who were vaping were using other substances, but we do have a significant amount of students who are just seeking help to stop vaping. So it's not kind of a hard and fast rule in either direction, but it is pretty common with how easy things are, especially between cannabis and nicotine vapes.
I have more of something to add rather than a question. One thing that you guys didn't go over is a lot of these things actually explode in people's pockets. Happens quite frequently where they get burned or actually, in some severe cases, actually die from it. And then to go on to what she was talking about, the vaping leading to cannabis oil being used, I do know from experience with family members that at schools, before going to school, some of these kids are mixing cannabis oil in with the tobacco oil and using it, and if caught, they just, talk about how it's just nicotine, not cannabis. I've been on my niece, who's 14, and she's been doing this. I've been on her majorly. I couldn't get her to come to the seminar, but so just food for thought there.
Luckily in the schools, they are treating most of those things the same. So if there is a student caught on campus with any vaping device, whether it's got THC oil in it or nicotine, they're still referred to us automatically, or they should be.
Lori talked a little bit about this. As a parent, I was pretty stunned to see some of these devices. I would never suspect a thing. I think it's important that everyone takes a look at what some of these vape devices look like. I mean, it's crazy, right? If that's in the front pocket of your kid's backpack, are you going to know?
No, and they can honestly look like anything. And some of them are rechargeable, some of them are disposable. They come in different sizes.
They're pens that actually work.
Yeah,
Markers that work.
And like Lori said, a lot of them are made to not be found. And because they come in different sizes, or some of them are refillable, like I said, you never really know how much a student is consuming. And for the most part, these devices have like about a 5% nicotine concentration, and usually come with like 2,000 to 5,000 hits in them. And
do they even know how much they're consuming? When
They
you
don't.
have a pack of cigarettes, you can see you've smoked all the
Correct.
cigarettes. But if you have a vape device, how do you know?
I've done an exercise with a number of my students where I kind of ask them how long they can get one of these devices to last. And sometimes it's anywhere between like a week to 2 weeks to a month, depending on how often they're using. I think the fastest I've seen someone report going through one is a week, and if they've got 5,000 hits in a vape divided by 7 days, it's a pretty significant number of hits they're doing in a day. I mean, they're snacking on them all day long. And I think it's about 100 hits to like one cigarette. So there were some numbers reported earlier, but if they're going through a 5,000 hit vape in about 2 weeks, that's about 2 packs a day.
Wow.
In the nicotine equivalent.
Anyone else have questions here in front of us? There's one in the back.
Good evening. Great presentation. Sorry, I was talking to an off mic. I'm actually going to interpret a question that was just asked me from this young mom. And the question is, how can I know if my kid is partaking this vaping activity? How do I know? And is there any other communication that you can send to the parents? Sort of like the pictures of what to look for.
That's a great idea. Can I start, and then the smarter people? But from a principal perspective, what I tell my parents to look for is if you smell really bad Bath and Body spray that smells like strawberries all the time, that's probably a good guess. If there isn't the strawberry Bath and Body Works spray to back it up. Or if you open up your child's backpack and it smells like cotton candy, I'm betting they didn't have cotton candy at school. So what I would suggest from there, and I think Lynn and everybody else probably has some better ideas, but it's an opportunity to open up a conversation. I think that one of the things kids are scared about is if they're feeling addicted, they're already afraid of the addiction and what that's doing to their body. But they're also afraid they're going to get in trouble. And so that open communication about what's happening helps. But I tell my parents, I put pictures of these in my newsletter, so look for them and trust your nose. It's probably not lying to you. I can tell when I've walked into a bathroom if it smells a lot like cotton candy and the kid says, "Oh, it was my Bath and Body Works spray." I'm like, I don't think so. I don't
It's
think
a cover-up.
So that's one of the things that I would look for first as a parent.
Also, I try to tell parents, like, talk about things that don't matter often so that when there is something that you need to talk about that does, it doesn't seem awkward. Like, you are your child's best advocate. You know them the best, and we are, we partner with you, but you should be trying to have, I know sometimes it's hard, and the way we question things like, how was your day? Great. What did you, fine. So try to, engage in more questioning that won't allow for one-word answers. And if they seem uninterested, that's okay. That's what they're teens, right? But because you're not always going to suspect or know. We're not always going to know. So we want to try to have open lines of communication, and also having that maybe beforehand place of knowing that they can come to you and talk to you about anything, and that there's always going to be consequences in life, but that you're a safe space of the getting in trouble. I would rather my kid come to me and get help, right? I have 3 teens, and talk to me than them to be too scared of it's because they're going to get in trouble. So we're not always going to know. We're not always going to catch them, so to say, in their backpack or whatever. But if we have open lines that building that that relationship and that communication, hopefully that right there in itself is going to eventually have them come to you and confide in you.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I was going to say, is maintaining that relationship and building a relationship where if a kid gets in trouble, instead of saying, "Oh crap, I can't tell my mom," having it be, "Oh crap, I need my mom," and working on developing that relationship. Like I mentioned earlier, that's going to be their biggest protective factor, and trust your gut. Like was mentioned, you know your kid, and if you're concerned about anything, again, communicate with them, and you can communicate with their teachers. All of the staff at the school are so ready to jump into action to support our kids. So if you're concerned about something that you're seeing at home, then you can, reach out to the schools and see if there's anything that they're seeing at school as well. And just keeping always those communication channels open.
We have another question over here.
I was just going to
add something, Danielle?
just, from a symptom basis, right? If you're wanting to really be looking for something, I would be looking for those behavior changes or changes in their school performance. If they're having sort of like this increased secrecy or wanting to hide things, maybe even those physical symptoms like wheezing, coughing, those nausea, vomiting type of
sometimes
symptom.
Increased agitation.
Yeah. So if you're really wanting to like focus on something, if you're noticing those types
Actual
of symptoms,
physical symptoms, yeah.
then I'd be questioning, right? Having that conversation with your child and just try and find out what's going on.
We have a question right in the middle, and then we'll go to the front. What's your question?
Hi, my name is Lorenzo Curtis. I'm 23 years old. I work in the wastewater industry. I'm a young developing professional. I'm very happy to be here today. This is a really cool panel, a really cool forum, and a great opportunity to open up the floor to have a conversation about something that may be taboo or maybe isn't spoken about enough. So thank you for this. And Danielle, you had mentioned quite a few things that caught my attention and kind of got my brain rolling. So I'm going to just kind of introduce these ideas. So you had mentioned that nicotine and cannabis produce problems with attention. And you also mentioned immediate gratification and healthy decision making. And in my personal opinion, I find that, or at least I have noticed in people that I know, that nicotine and cannabis slowly create this shift in priorities and the lack of focus on future goals. And I think that has something to do with the immediate gratification part and how you can immediately gratify yourself with this hit that Lori kindly has displayed on her desk there.
Yeah.
Or you can also otherwise lock into academics, sports, family, faith, whatever it may be that drives you. And so I guess my question to you, Danielle, or maybe just to the panel in general, is how do we help students prioritize their academic and personal success and growth over the immediate gratification that substances bring them?
Yeah, that's really hard. Yeah.
We do this every day.
That is why we're here. That is the big question, right? How do we prevent the kids from getting to that place?
I think it goes back to kind of what all the panelists have said, but it's sort of teaching those skills, those life skills, and those abilities to have those goals and to be able to process your emotions, and all of those things that you talked about are what's in the that we're trying to teach the students in addition to this prevention piece. Yeah.
Well, there's also the reason, like Danielle talked about the effects on the brain, and we're trying to protect the brain. There's a lot of, when our kids are young and before their prefrontal cortex develops, there's a lot of pruning going on in the brain. And when a kid is so focused on, like you said, the nicotine or the gratification of the cannabis, unfortunately, the brain is pruning out things that maybe they used to be interested in, right? And so, and in school, we have, like at high school, we have the CTE wheel, because we want our kids to experiment and try all kinds of different areas that they might be interested in and pursuing in college, et cetera. And so, unfortunately, when they are in a state of gratification from cannabis or nicotine, the brain, and they lose interest in some of those other areas that you mentioned, the brain starts pruning those things away, and we're missing an opportunity, right? So this is a huge, the huge protective factor that I talked about. Even if they wait to experiment or use when they're 18 or 19, could delay the fact that they could become an addict later, right? An abuser. So just all the other things that we're doing besides in our health lessons is getting kids connected to school, either through theater, dance, sports, right? And so that's one of our strategic goals. And I love that our district is really focused on kids feeling that a sense of that community and belonging. And so moving forward, we will continue to focus on those issues, because we know that kids that are involved and have those goals tend to stray from bad decisions, right? And make better decisions for their future.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I focus on a lot in the work I do individually with students is working really holistically on like the kid as a whole, not just focusing only on their use and to stop using, but it's a lot easier to develop positive habits by like adding new things that you're doing than just like quitting and taking stuff away. And so we talk a lot about developing hobbies, developing skills, different things like that, as well as meeting a kid where they're at. Sometimes they might not be interested in anything, I have to say. Oftentimes that's the case. But even if they're just a little bit interested, even if they just want to talk to me for a few minutes, and I can get a small conversation in with them, and set itty-bitty goals, and working on small incremental changes that can end up making a big difference in increasing that motivation and rebuilding those decision-making skills and reconnecting. Like Kristen said, there's a lot of that pruning that goes on, but that doesn't mean those connections are lost forever. The brain is so magnificent, and it's constantly changing and growing and learning. And so being able to reforge a lot of those neural pathways back to things that they loved is totally possible. Our brains are awesome, and you just have to keep working on learning new skills.
Dad here in the front has a question. What's your question?
Where parents go if they find their kids vaping or using drugs, and how often parents fight with their kids because they got caught, or the parent is too soft to handle that behavior and the kid is too rough to forget it. I'm gonna continue vaping and you have no say.
So where can parents turn when they find out that their child is vaping, especially if it's a contentious situation? So what do you do?
Yeah.
You can turn to us. In the schools, if you're concerned about your kid, you can, again, contact your school counselor and get them connected at school. And also, I think the biggest thing, a lot of our reactions when we see our kids doing these things, we react out of fear. And when we're worried about their health, we're worried about their futures and their brains and all the stuff that's going on. And, is this going to change my kid? What's going to happen? And so when we react out of fear, a lot of times that can turn into anger, that can turn into contention. And so I think kind of trying to rein a lot of that in and in these conversations that we keep talking about, come at it from a curious approach. Ask questions. Why do you have this? What do you get from this? What are you seeking from this? And that's a question I ask my kids a lot. Like, what purpose is this fulfilling in your life? And continuing to come at them and seeking to understand their motivations, and rather than being combative or contentious. And when they're being combative and contentious, that makes it extra hard. And you have to really kind of rein yourself in sometimes. And if you recognize that you're having a hard time with that, seeking help for yourself. You can contact the school social workers. I know I work at the Merlot Station campus, and we're interested in serving families as a whole. And so sometimes we help the entire family get connected to different services, and being able to talk to a professional, whether it's a medical professional or a mental health professional, about how to have these conversations, how to talk to your kids about stuff like this. So
Yeah, I think the last thing we want is for them to be scared and shut down and not come to you and be open. It's so hard as parents not to have that knee-jerk reaction. So we're grateful that we have people like you. Anyone else have any questions here?
Hello, my name is Igor. I wonder how the kids get access to these devices and what have been done to deal with the dealers. I don't know.
That's a great question. So where are kids getting these vape devices, and are we making any progress in stopping that from happening?
It's interesting that you would bring that up, because I almost was afraid somebody would ask that, because a lot of times we don't know. So I asked my high school partners, because I think they see more of it than I do. And really what they see the trend is through social media like Snapchat and Discord, where a dealer, somebody old enough to go buy a vape pen, really has like an entrepreneur, small business, and they find people at the high school level, or not so much the middle school, this is more of a high school thing, that are basically their brokers. And believe it or not, it's pretty easy. And so the challenge for us as administrators, for our YSOs, which is our law enforcement partners, for poor Lynn down there, who's just like, I'm trying to stop all of this and I can't.
And Kristen's nodding her head because she knows how easy it is.
It's difficult, because with that social media, a lot of it disappears very quickly. And so the kids are able to keep it away from us, which makes it difficult for us to do some tracking. Where we have had some luck is they typically cast out a wide net using a hashtag that, like hashtag vape and the high school name. And we can sometimes get some screenshots that will help us, and then we can find it from there. I don't know that we are very good at doing some legal prosecution from that, but we can shut down that particular avenue. But the reality is it's pretty easy for people who are over 21 or looking like they're over 21 to get it. And that makes it hard for us. We're chasing our tail a lot. So what we have to do is be vigilant in the school. And how we do that is by doing things at the middle school level for sure, where we say, one kid out of the classroom at a time. It's not nearly as fun to vape by yourself, right? So if you're going to the bathroom, one kid at a time. You're not going together. We've, all middle schools have increased, and high schools actually, increased the amount of time they do bathroom sweeps. So we try to go in about every 10 minutes and see what's happening. We look for patterns. In attendance, if we have a student who is tardy often, about the same time of day, they're probably needing a hit. And so we might increase our watching the bathroom or watching the area at that time, not to catch the student, but to support them. So what we're trying to do is what we have the locus of control over, which is our building. And I think it's moderately working, shutting it down a little bit.
I think we have time for one more question. We have a question here in the front. It's on.
See the green light means it's on.
Oh, you're good. Hello.
Forget your question. Weren't you gonna ask?
Maybe Dad can ask the question for you.
He was just curious about like what the consequences are at school if it's found upon you.
Yeah,
And,
that's a great question.
And also like if he sees a friend or someone, maybe he just doesn't like doing it, who does he talk to about it?
Yeah. So what happens to students who are caught vaping, and what can students do if they want to report someone who's vaping?
Those are two very important questions, right? And I'm going to start with what you can do. So first of all, I hope you have a trusted adult in the building. And if you have somebody that you care about, that you know, that you can trust, maybe a teacher, your advisory teacher, maybe even your principal. Come on, we're not all scary. If you talk to them and you tell them you don't want your name known, I can look you in the eye and promise you we will keep your information confidential. If you don't trust that, there's a thing called Safe Oregon. And you just get online and you can either text it or you can put in your tip, and there's no way we can trace it, but it gives us information. So, and we follow up on that the very next day. So that's how you can help. What I think it's important for students to do is it's not being a snitch. It's not tattling. It's really working hard to support your friends and people that you care about so that they don't get more addicted. As far as consequences go, we have a code of conduct and we follow that. Typically, we're working to get support. We're trying to get education. We're trying to be an education place. We're not trying to punish it out. Now, that said, if it's over and over and over again, or if somebody's selling it in school, that's a whole different thing. And we are going to be, we're going to be fair and we're going to do an investigation, but we're also going to not let it happen in our building. So our first approach, I think district-wide, is what can we do to help? What can we do to support? And that said, if it continues and the same person, then we're going to take some action, which could include up to suspension. I guarantee you it's going to look like way more eyes on you where you go. It might limit how many times you can go to the bathroom. It might limit your how we're watching you in the building. But we're not going to start off that way. We're going to start off with what can we do to help you, or not you, but the person you're using.
We have one more question in the back.
Hi, my name is Manira. In case if I don't want to, vape or something like that, and then someone says like you have to vape or I will do this or something like that.
What do you do if you're pressured to vape? Who
Yeah.
can you turn to and what should you do?
In the moment, you can always walk away. Even if you're saying no and they're still talking to you, you can just walk away. If there's someone who's doing that to you or pressuring you like that, then it's probably someone you should walk away from anyways. And then, like Lori said, find a trusted adult in your building. There's someone you have a relationship with, a teacher, your counselor, the campus monitor, whoever you talk to the most, and let them know your experiences. They want to be there to support you and help you, and they can walk you through some of those refusal skills as well.
We encourage our students to come up before it even happens, before you're even pressured to have it. Have a line, have something in your head. And one of the things that's been successful for many of our students is I can't take a hit on that because I have soccer practice. Or I can't take a hit on that because I know my mom would find out. She's got a good nose, she'll smell. But whatever your excuse is, practice that and have that in your head before you get asked, because then it becomes easy. The sports practice part, my coach will know it's going to impact me at practice. I'm working on making the higher team. If that works for you, great. I just have a cold. That's another one that another student used. I might have COVID. That's one. I don't want to share your vape pen. So you just, whatever it is, find your excuse in your head so you're ready to use it.
I think that's such an important tool that all the kids need to arm themselves with.
And we do have that conversation in our health classes. That's one of our refusal skills is don't wait till you're in the moment to know how you're going to respond. Think about what you would do if being in that situation. And that situation is very real. I want you to know that my son, I have open conversations with I have 3 teens, and he says that he gets offered vape very often in the bathroom, and his line is, "Oh, I can't today. I have a test next period." And I'm like, that's a great line. Like, so he has already thought out what he's going to say, because he says it's not uncommon that he gets offered in the restrooms.
Thank you to all of our incredible panelists tonight. I know the parents are so grateful for all of this information, and the kids too. I want to thank the Communications and Community Involvement Department here at Beaverton School District for organizing this event and for continuing to get this important, really life-saving information message out to families. Thank you to all of you for attending in person, and for those watching the live stream, thank you for tuning in. The district has made lots of anti-vaping resources available on the website. It's fantastic. I went down that rabbit hole earlier. The address is on the screen, and there are handouts at the door right there. Thank you all for coming, and have a great evening.